Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to our weekly broadcast of Wealth and Wisdom with Fred Belcastro from the John DeVita Broadcast Center on the Windy City Hometown Entertainment Network and Jack FM 89.7 WRHS FM Norwich on Friday, February the 12th, the year of our Lord, 2016. And now, here he is, Mr. Fred Belcastro.
When you're smiling,
When you're smiling,
when you're smiling,
when you're smiling,
and the whole world smiles with you.
smiles with you.
And when you're laughing,
When you're laughing,
oh, you're laughing.
oh, you're laughing,
When the sun comes shining through.
shining through.
When you're crying,
When you're crying,
you bring on the rain.
bring on the
Stop
rain.
your sighing.
Stop your sighing.
Won't you be happy again?
Happy again.
When you're smiling,
When you're smiling,
keep on smiling.
keep on smiling.
And the whole world smiles.
Good morning and welcome to the Wealth and Wisdom program. My name is Fred Belcastro, your host, and during the next 30 minutes, we're going to talk about using our wisdom, our common sense to grow and protect our wealth. As usual, we're broadcasting from the John DeVita Broadcast Center here on the northwest side of Chicago, and you're listening to us this morning on Jack FM 89.7 WRHS in Norwich. We talk a few minutes, the program director, John DeVita, and myself, before each show. And we were talking this morning, actually John had mentioned that it was exactly 52 years ago, last Monday. What would that date be? The 8th. February 8th, that the Aragon Ballroom closed, had its final broadcast as such, with Franklin McCormick, the Wayne Kings Orchestra, Cliff Mercer was there, and of course our program director was the assistant to the remote engineer there. 52 years ago off WGN. Think about things that had happened in the past, about our lives and things we did years ago. Sometimes it's fun to think about those things, and of course it always adds a taste of sentiment to it as well. I remember when I came into the insurance business, this was back in 1962, 1963, we wrote insurance. Well, I worked for the Metropolitan Life Insurance Company in this area, in the western suburbs, and we sold policies on a weekly basis. Remember that? Where you could buy a $250 policy for 10 cents a week, 20 cents a week, and the value of that policy was, of course, $250, and you could buy a $500 policy, or you could get a big policy, one of those big ones that was $10,000. Well, back in the 40s and 50s, of course, was a tremendous amount of money. And now you hear individual agents talking about purchasing policies of $250,000 for just $10 a month or $15 a month. You hear this individual say, we purchased a man 40 years old who had high blood pressure, a $250,000 policy for just $15 a month, $20 a month, whatever it is. But you've got to let the people know, and if we're talking about things, you've got to let the people know that how long is that rate guaranteed for, good for? I'm not knocking it. I'm just saying, full disclosure, that might be an annual renewable term, and so the following year the premium could go from $14 to $14,000. There, you have no guarantees. It's written in the contract what the renewal rates are. But anyway, this is how we progress, and this is how insurance policies are sometimes sold. $14 for $250,000. Can you get one for $10 a month? Can you get one for $5? Well, sure. There's a minimum that one can pay for any given amount of insurance coverage for a specific age, and the maximum. So there's a minimum that you can pay and a maximum. Talking about things that you can do when you talk about an insurance policy, just know that there's a $10,000 policy or a $100,000 policy. There's a minimum value that you could pay, and then there's a maximum that you could pay. Who determines the minimum? Well, it's the insurance company. They know how much they need to get for a given amount of protection at a given age. And at the other end of the spectrum is the maximum you can pay for a given amount of coverage at that specific age. Well, the question really comes in, who determines the premium? Besides you, it's the government. The fact that the federal government limits how much money you can put into insurance policy says what about it? What does it tell us that if the government now restricts the amount of money we could pay into an insurance policy for a given face amount? It must be pretty good. In more detail, it must be good in relationship to one subject. It's good for us for taxes. Basically, the government decides the upper limit of tax-advantaged growth that they would allow. And the policyholder still has access to the cash value. In other words, you are limited by the federal government how much tax-free or tax-deferred benefit you could derive. Why would they do that? Let me stumble over a couple of words. We don't know why they would do that, do we? Basically, the government is for our protection, right? They want to help the individual person, and yet they restrict the amount of money that we could have in tax-advantaged growth. Well, policies outside this allowable corridor are determined to be another subject, of course, of modified endowments, but we're not here to talk about that. I just want to place in your mind, give you something to think about, that you've got to treat an insurance policy a little different than the way we perceive them to be. They're like a qualified plan with all the rules, regulations, and penalties. And then after we're done, you'll probably know more about the insurance coverage than a lot of agents will disclose to you. At a minimum, if we talk about it long enough, you'll learn something that they may not be telling you. There's almost an infinite amount of premiums that can be charged between the minimum, the low portion, and the maximum portion. This is a whole discussion that I go into before anyone would consider buying an insurance policy. As I mentioned earlier, the insurance companies determine the minimum. They know what they have to get for that given amount of value. They have actuaries that calculate the least amount of the premium and that they could charge and still maintain a profit. They understand about opportunity costs that we've gone over and over and over on this show, which means that they have factored in the time value of the money of the premiums. But I have to make this point. In the 1980s, the government drew the line that determined the maximum amount of money you can put into an insurance policy for a given amount of coverage. They accomplished this with a couple of laws that they put in place. And it wasn't always the laws that were of benefit to us. These two laws basically said that, hold on, just a minute now, the government can't let people put a lot of money, unlimited contributions into a life policy as it was in the past, because if people did, they may not want to do what the government wanted them to do by encouraging them to do what? What does the government encourage you to do besides pay taxes? They encourage and they want you to put the money into a qualified plan and defer the taxes, compound the taxes. These accounts, of course, became known as the IRAs, 401s, SEPs, 403Bs, and so on, just a few. We'll go into some of these things a little bit later, but it seems strange that they came out with the individual 401s and the IRA qualified plans as we sum up the discussion with that. They came out with these qualified plans in the late 70s, and then in the 80s restricted the amount of dollars that individuals can put into what could conceivably be called a tax-free life insurance policy. Death benefits are tax-free, and there are arrangements within a permanent policy which you could access the amount of dollars that you have in there without paying any taxes. So once again, they looked out for us and made certain that there's going to be some restrictions placed. And of course, they were looking out for our benefit. But I'd like you to understand that when I look at insurance, or when I talk about insurance, maybe I do it a little differently than most. I look at an insurance as a piece of your overall financial plan, financial picture. I think you should insure things to protect the things that you can't afford to lose. Isn't that where we how we grew up thinking about insurance? And we self-insure. We don't have to insure something that we could control ourselves by making the money in our control. So the primary reason that we have insurance protection is to protect you against the loss from things that can impact your cash flow. We talked for years about accumulating money. You had the 401s, you have the IRAs, you have your retirement plan, you have the blah, 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 and it goes on and on. But the primary purpose of having insurance is to protect that. If something happens along the line, where do you get the money to pay for these expenditures? You have a claim on your automobile. Where do you get the money to pay it? If there were nothing as far as insurance, how would you pay for that $40,000 car you got sitting out in a curb or in the garage? You'd have to take it out of your saving tank, your investment tanks. Do you understand? You'd have to go to the bank and withdraw money. You'd have to withdraw money from your pension plans and from your retirement plans in order to fund that expense. So look at protection as just being one part of a solid and well-balanced financial strategy, because that's what it is. And it helps you to determine the amount of protection that you want. Again, it's not what you need. It's always what you want. We want to be in the best possible position at some time in the future, perhaps when we retire. We'll call that position A, and most of us would want to have enough money put away in our savings and investment tanks during our working years so that there'll be very little difference between how we want to live our life in the future and how we live today. And protection, the insurance just gives us the degree of protection to maintain, to say, and to keep our money in the savings and investment tanks. In addition to that, we want to have the protection in place to make sure that our current standard of living is protected, and we don't have to rob from our future lifestyles in order to get by today in the event of a loss. But this brings us to the question: are these things that we've talked about? Are these things that we've talked about with our financial advisors? Have we asked them these questions? Do we know the answer to these four questions? And this will help determine where we're going to be at retirement, or where you're going to be sometime in the future when you no longer have an income or a cash flow from your employment. Do you today, do you know the answer to these simple questions that I keep going over and over again, and yet so important to our retirement, to our capital? Do you know what rate of return you need? Hey, do you know how fast you have to run? How fast you have to drive? Do you know what rate of return do you need? How much speed do you need in your portfolios in order to maintain the same standard of living when you stop working? Do you know that rate of return? Do you know how much you need to be saving? How much are you putting away? Is that a sufficient amount? Do you know how much you're supposed to be putting away in order to have and enjoy the same standard of living at retirement as you do today? Do you know how much longer you're going to have to work? Can you work until 55, 60, 65, 70, 70? How much longer do you have to work? And can you work? Will you be in the right health? Will you have the same vocation that will allow you to continue working? Have you thought about this? Have you asked your advisor these questions? Have you asked yourselves? Have you thought about these things? Thinking about things, very, very important. Do you know how much you'll have to reduce your standard of living if you don't think about things? One of the services that I provide to all my clients is help them get the answer to these questions. To provide you with the answers to these questions takes about 10, 15 minutes. If you're interested in knowing the answers, listen, if you'd like to do that on your own, go to the website, fbelcastro.cfp.income for life model. I've talked about that continuously over the last couple of weeks. You want to find out the answer to these four questions? You don't want to involve an advisor? You don't want to make a phone call? Then just go online, fbelcastro.cfp.income for life model, use the interactive pages and figure this out for yourself. Now, why don't we take a break and listen to Sinatra for a few minutes?
Every night I sit here by my window, staring at the lonely avenue, watching lovers holding hands and laughing,
Ha ha ha.
thinking about the things we used to do,
Think about things,
like a walk in the park,
things,
like a kiss in the dark,
things.
like a sailboat ride.
Yeah, yeah.
What about the night we cried?
Oh.
Things like lovers vowed, things that we don't do now, thinking about the things we used to do. Memories are all I have to cling to,
Cling to.
and heartaches are the friends I'm talking to.
But you got me now.
When I'm not thinking of just how much I love you,
I love you too.
well, I'm thinking about the things we used to do,
Used to do. Think about things,
like a walk in the park,
things,
like a kiss in the dark,
things.
like a sailboat ride.
Yeah, yeah.
What about the night we cried? Things like lovers vowed, things that we don't do now, thinking about the things we used to do. I still can hear the jukebox softly playing,
Playing
and the face I see each day belongs to you.
belongs to you.
Though there's not a single sound, and there's nobody else around, well, that's just me thinking about things we used to do,
We used to do. Think about things,
like a walk in the park,
lots of things.
like a kiss in the dark,
Yeah, things.
like a sailboat ride.
Whoa, whoa.
What about the night that we cried? Things like lovers vowed, things that we don't do now,
Thinking about the things we used to do. And the heartaches are the friends I'm talking to.
You got me thinking about the things we used to do.
I hope so. Thinking about the things we used to do.
All right. I said listening to Sinatra, but I didn't mislead you. That was Nancy Sinatra, along with Dean Martin singing Things. As with anything, if we have a goal, it's clear that you have to have a plan. You have a game plan. You also have to have a well thought out strategy in order to make goals happen. It makes little sense. It's kind of silly to accumulate money, to put it into our tanks, our investment tanks, our savings tanks, our 401, whatever you prefer to call it, without protecting them. Remember when we started talking about the amount of money that we're going to earn during our lifetime and what our income potential really was, and we talked about how would you protect the amount of dollars that you have. See, because what you have, well, I don't care if you put it in a tank or the bathtub or on the kitchen or dining room table, it's not yours if someone or some event can take it away from you. So protect it. And so then that's part of my job, to help you keep what you've worked so hard to accumulate. But imagine, rather than a bathtub, we have a big barrel. We have a tank, and that tank would represent all the money that we're going to earn during our entire lifetime. Some people have a bigger tank than others, and some are smaller, but nevertheless, we all want to get what? We all want our tank to grow. We want to be able to maximize the amount of money that we have going into this tank. A lot of money falls into this tank. We talked about the millions of dollars that we'll earn, and of course we add an amount of interest to that. That comes to a tremendous amount of capital, but in that tank, but no money really stays there, right? Because your money goes through that monthly cash flow tube. We spend money each and every month, each and every week, and once the money goes in, once we've earned it, we've accumulated, what we have to do. What do we have? Well, we have to pay a tax. So it has to pass the tax man. Then the taxes of the federal, the state, and the local government takes what they want, leaving us only a couple of choices left. After taxes, one, we could put money into our future lifestyle by saving or investing the money to secure a future lifestyle, and the other option is we could allow our money just to flow and be consumed and spent. If we allow our money to be flowed through the tube of lifestyle and just spent, we never see it again. We never earn anything on it. We never get anything in the future. Unfortunately, I think a lot of people purchase their protection products, their insurance protection, from someone who knows little or nothing about what's happening with the other side of the model. And of course, in order to have clarity, I mentioned at the beginning of the conversation after the song, we have to have a plan and a thought-out strategy. Do you have clarity in this plan? Do you see and actually know what's going on? We see what happens with our 401s if we open our statements up each month, but we have to be able to look at both sides of the coin, how we're protecting that money and how we're investing or saving that money. Traditionally, I think we have one person for investments and the other for insurance products, and often neither of them are really concerned with what's going on with the other side. I'm not saying that you should move everything just to one person, but you should have available to you a model that lends clarity so that you can see what's going on with your dollars. Let me explain a little bit further what I mean in the time that I have left. We talk over and over through the years about three types of money. Right? One type of that money is your accumulated money. This is the money that you have in the savings tank and investment tank, and that you've accumulated. The other type of money is the lifestyle. This is the amount of dollars that provides for our current standard of living. This is the amount of dollars that we spend each and every week, each and every month. But the third type of money, we don't always look at. The third type of money is never talked. If you receive a phone call from an advisor who doesn't have your account, he'll say, "Fine, so and so, how much money do you have, and where is it? Oh, we could do better than that. Invest it with us." Or they'll say, "I'd like to show you this plan, which is the best things since sliced bread. Put $500 a month into this plan." In other words, whatever he's going to talk to you about, you'll have to take away from your lifestyle. So we're either looking at accumulated money to sell a better product, to give you a better rate of interest. And let me tell you something. I've been in the business 50 years. You can always show somebody better interests of last year, the year before, the year before. We could talk about the averages, which is not the actual. We could do all kinds of things like that. But nevertheless, the two types of money that most advisors are concerned about are the accumulated money. How much do you have? And how much would you like to reduce your lifestyle by, so you can put it into this miraculous investment. The third type of money, as I mentioned, is something that few of us give any attention to, because it's not plainly visible. We can't see it, but it's real, and helping you see how much money we have is what makes us a little different than other agencies. The third type of money, this is what I've been talking about for years and years, is the money transferred. Transferred money represents the money that you could be losing unknowingly and unnecessarily through inefficiency in the model. Oh, you don't have a model? Maybe that's a reason why we should construct a model, so you could see exactly where your money is going, what it's accumulating, how it's invested, how it's being saved, how much is saved versus how much is invested. Don't forget the invested money is money that's at risk. How much risk do you really want your portfolio to have in comparison to the amount of money that you have in the safe tanks? These are dollars, though, that you're just transferring away unknowingly. And I think if you knew that you were doing this, you, of course, have the wisdom, the common sense to stop doing it and unnecessarily. Maybe you don't know another way of handling these inefficiencies, but we can consider some of these inefficiencies and how you pay your houses. How do you pay for your mortgage? How about your taxes? We're coming to the time now when we make a reconciliation on income tax. How many of us give any thought to where these figures should be placed? Listen, I've been doing taxes for 30 years. I know where to put the numbers. But why do we have to put those numbers there if they're going to result in a higher tax on you? Isn't there something we could do prior to that? Start doing now for 2016. But that's taxes. We go about paying our taxes like it's something that we just want to do, I guess. How do you fund your 401 or your retirement plan? Is it the most efficient and effective way? How do you spend and accumulate money for our kids' education, their college expenses? How do we purchase cars or make other large expenditures such as weddings? See, these unnecessary transfers can happen from not having the amount of protection in place as well. But let's take another break. Let me get a sip of coffee and listen to one of the songs that was on the program for the Aragon Ballroom closing 52 years ago.
I'll be seeing you in all the old familiar places that this heart of mine embraces all day through. In that small cafe, the park across the way, the children's carousel, the chestnut trees, the wishing well. I'll be seeing you in every lovely summer's day, in everything that's light and gay. I'll always think of you that way.
I'll find you in the morning sky, and when the night is new,
I'll be looking at the moon, but I'll be seeing you.
I'll see you in that small cafe, the park across the way, the children's carousel, the chestnut trees, the wishing well.
I'll be seeing you in every lovely summer's day, in everything that's light and gay. I'll always think of you that way. I'll find you in the morning sun, and when the night is new, I'll be looking at the moon, but I'll be seeing you.
I'll be seeing you, I'll be seeing you.
Jimmy Durante, and of course I'll be seeing you. Our time is up for this week. I'd like to thank John DeVita, our program director, for bringing us back to 52 years ago with the closing of the Aragon Ballroom and all those that wonderful music and voices that we don't come to hear anymore. In the coming weeks and the coming days, let's be kind to one another and make somebody smile. And for tribute to Jimmy Durante, good night, Mrs. Calabash, wherever you are.
When you're smiling,
When you're smiling,
when you're smiling,
when you're smiling,
and the whole world smiles with you. And when you're laughing,
when you're laughing,
oh, you're laughing.
oh, you're laughing,
When the sun comes shining through.
shining through.
When you're crying,
When you're crying,
you bring on the rain.
bring on the
Stop
rain.
your sighing.
Stop your sighing,
Won't you be happy again?
happy again.
When you're smiling,
When you're smiling,
keep on smiling.
keep on smiling.
And the world will smile with you.
You have been listening to Wealth and Wisdom with Fred Belcastro from the John DeVita Broadcast Center on Jack FM 89.7 WRHS FM Norwich and the Windy City Hometown Entertainment Network on Friday, February the 12th, the year of our Lord, 2016. This broadcast was directed by John DeVita. Our special thanks to radio station manager Kevin Zeflik of WRHS FM Norwich and the executive producer of Windy City Hometown Entertainment Network, Mr. John Seconda. Until next time, please be safe and thanks for listening. And this is Jack FM 89.7 WRHS FM, Norwich, Illinois. Have a safe, warm, and enjoyable weekend, friends. See you next week.